What's up, everyone? This is Alex from redlemonclub.com. You are listening to episode 3 of the Red Lemon Show, broadcasting to you from a rather rainy and dark Bangkok, Thailand, Sunday evening. The lights are coming out, the smells of the streets are out, the stray dogs are fighting, the rain is falling. This is Thailand, and you're listening to the Red Lemon Show. So, episode 3. It's been a good 3 or 4 days since the last one, and it's amazing how the momentum that comes with doing these podcasts can fade. But here I am, showing up. I want to get to a reader question, a little bit later on. But first, I wanted to chat very quickly about a new feature that I'll be adding to the podcast. It's going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to be featuring one creative person, one solo business, one creative freelancer, their portfolio. That I will be putting that up perhaps halfway through the show, or maybe at the end of the show. And the way that you can put yourself forward, I will choose from a list of people that are suggested to me. Use email. Go to shoutout@redlemonclub.com. Send an email to shoutout@redlemonclub.com, and I will look through all the entries, and I'll pick one for each episode and give whoever I like the look of a bit of a shout out for that, give you a bit of extra exposure, etc. So the Red Lemon Show running along smoothly and doing rather well. I'm getting some very good feedback from people. People are starting to share it on social media, which is always a good sign. Feedback is good. Obviously, I have things to improve, like talking too fast occasionally, cramming too much into various episodes. But we're getting there, and Anchor FM, which is the app that I create the initial podcast through, is great. Like, it allows you to do a call-in, like an actual audio call-in. So if you want to have your voice featured on an upcoming episode and you have a question or you want to say something, I may very well include it in an upcoming episode. So use the Anchor.fm app to use that feature. That's really handy. And Anchor's very cool because they're pushing out this podcast to not only their own channels but other places where you can listen to podcasts. So it's already become available on Spotify. It's not yet on iTunes, but it's on Stitcher and it's on Google Podcasts and a range of other ones. So you are starting to be able to hear my dulcet tones in a wider variety of places. So aren't you all lucky? So today's episode, I mentioned that I wanted to answer a question. So we're going to go deep dive on a topic. I will reveal the question shortly. I have a very handy list in front of me. I sent out a survey to my Red Lemon Club subscribers the other day, and they came back to me with a nice list of questions that I could address in my blog post as well as podcast. So I've got a nice list of questions here. Don't be put off by that in terms of you being able to send me your own questions. Feel free to email me. Use the shout out email to ask me questions that I may address in upcoming episodes. But today's question is from Anonymous, and where is it? I've already lost it. Hang on a sec. Yeah, it's gone. I've lost it. Bear with me, guys. Okay, here we go. So the question is, it's a little long and convoluted, but I'll whittle it down to something that is a bit more clear. So what do you do on days when you're staggering with your belief in your talent and capacity to produce something that the world will benefit from? Or just on days when you are on a creative slump? So basically, this person is asking, what do you do on days when you feel like you're in a creative slump, when you don't feel productive, when you feel like you have a bit of brain fog and you don't feel like creating art and you feel a little bit discouraged and you just don't feel up for doing the art, which is something that I have experienced on numerous times. We all know what it feels like to just not really feel like doing the art, even though we know that we need to be consistent. We know that we've got to push content out there. We know we have to do the stuff that markets ourselves and gets us in front of the people that we want to know about us. So this is an interesting one because it affects all of us, from the very people right on the first rung of the ladder of the creative journey, right up to the Picassos and the Monets and the big guys, right up there. So this is an interesting one, and I'm looking forward to chatting a little bit about it. Again, non-scripted. I'm just going to see what comes to mind. I've got a few notes in front of me, but that's about it. My take on this is, firstly, I think we need to talk about, what is the dynamic of a slump? What is the dynamic at play when it comes to being in a slump? What is a slump? For me, I think it comes out of many things, and each slump that you feel you're having, each kind of sense of being creatively blocked or down, it could be so many things, and it's difficult to address this with a very a concrete black and white answer. But it could be something to do with it could be you lacking food, it could be you're too tired, it could be all those things. So I'm not going to go into those because those are obvious. If you're depleted in some way and you need to boost your energy, then I will leave that to you to figure out how to do that. I mean, obviously going to the gym and making sure that you're moving your body and breathing enough and eating enough, that's all key stuff, because that plays a big role in your creative energy and your creative power. So make sure that you're doing all the stuff that everyone talks about. This is not magic here. We all, to an extent, know what we need to do to get ourselves to at least a baseline of feeling good, feeling in a good enough place. But beyond that, this is where it gets a little bit more complex, shall we say. So, I mean, with in the modern age, for example, there are so many sources of comparison with other people. I think this could be a big one. So it certainly is for me. When you spend a lot of time on Instagram and Twitter and places where there are other people who are talented, who are sharing their stuff, and you scroll through it and you see the thousands of likes that they're all getting, and you just feel that sense of impending dread that comes with realizing that you are so far away from these guys, and you're a little bit jealous, and you're comparing yourself to them, and it will make you feel low because you see yourself in the context of this other person. You see yourself sort of much further behind, and it can be discouraging, of course. But this is an example of what I think is at the core of a creative slump for most people, beyond, as I say, getting your basic needs met. And I think that's struggling with your ego. So what do I mean by ego in this instance? What's an ego? Your ego, it's not something you have for breakfast. That's ego. An ego is, and this is where it gets a little bit woo-woo and existential and sort of wishy-washy. But my definition of ego is that thing. It's that voice in your head. It's that thing that pushes you to want to protect your self-image. Your ego is the thing that tells you that you need to maintain a personality, that you have a story that you run through your head, and this is your ego. This is the story you tell yourself about who you are, and effectively, what it's doing is it's trying to lift you up. It's kind of it's an element of self-esteem. It is there to make you feel better about yourself, but of course, it stops there. The ego does not allow you it doesn't allow you to improve yourself. It doesn't allow you to bring in self-development, because that, of course, would shatter the story you have of yourself that keeps you protected and safe and in your shell. But an ego it has two sides. It keeps you kind of proud of what you already have, even if it's a story and even if you're looking in the mirror and it's completely false. An ego also stops you from developing. And I think when your ego is strong, and when you allow it to kind of speak over your rational thinking, it puts you in the position of a victim, because a victim doesn't believe that they can change. They feel that they are suffering at the expense of the world. The world is sort of impinging on them and making them hurt. And when you see someone that you're comparing yourself with, your ego is saying, you are like this, they are like this, they are better than you, effectively. I know that it sounds a bit weird, but your ego is the thing that's stopping you, rather than see yourself as a victim and kind of feel sorry for yourself. What you really need to do is forget the ego, forget the thing that's stopping you from changing, and say, I need to be assertive here. I need to actually use this inspiration to either turn off Instagram and look the other way and get on with what I need to do, or use this moment of comparison and a little hint of jealousy, of course, that you have for this other artist, and use it as fuel, use it as motivation to change yourself for the good. This is what your ego doesn't want. Your ego wants you to stay as you are. Your ego wants you to be that personality, right? Your ego wants you to be the same person without exerting too much energy, and it wants you to keep you as a victim. You want to turn that crap around, okay? So you want to take a good hard look at the eyes of your ego and say, you know what, mate, I'm done with you, all right? You've been useful. I will let you kind of simmer away in the background, but I'm going to be turning away from you now. I'm going to say no, okay? I'm going to say I'm going to change this round, okay? And I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to use this frustration as fuel to, as I said, either turn away from the judgment that you feel from of yourself. You're giving yourself judgment in this case. You need to block that off, because the judgment that you're giving yourself, the harsh critique that you're maybe even subconsciously, not even without knowing, giving yourself, that needs to stop. You need to give yourself a chance. You need to turn this moment into, rather than judgment, you need to turn it into an observation. You need to be looking deeply into what it is that is causing you the frustration, which is, in this case, is as an artist who's doing good stuff. So look into that. Use it as an opportunity to learn from what the artist is teaching you. And rather than, right at this moment, you might think you need to be giving yourself more self-love, right? This is what a lot of people talk about. You need to love yourself more because you're feeling down, you're feeling in a slump. You've got to sit down and lay out some roses on the bed and say, I love myself. That's nice and true to an extent. There's definitely scope for self-love. But I think in this case, what you're saying is, when you're saying, how do I get out of a creative slump? What you want is not to be sitting in a bath all day. You want to be doing something. I can tell you're trying to push past that slump, right? You're in a creative block. You want to do something. So the answer to that is to do something. You need to take assertive action, which is A, to learn something so that you improve. B, to just get on with your work and turn off Instagram. And C, I'm probably just running away with myself here, but that's basically the gist of it. You want to be adding to your own value rather than trying to cater to your ego, which says, let's do what we can with what we have and try and impress people. This is something that I talk about a lot in my articles, is that you have a choice as a creative. You can either do work that impresses people, which is sort of a kind of needy way of looking at it, and you're catering to your ego in that way. You're trying to impress, you're trying to show off who you are, and it's not really anything to do with your own value. It could be that this is what leads to sort of manipulative stuff, and it's not very to the heart. You want to be building your own value, always be increasing the actual quality of what you do. So use this opportunity rather than worrying about yourself. Use this opportunity to assertively do something, and it can be anything. And what I'm getting at here is to take the next easy step, effectively. So rather than sitting there kind of worrying about things and feeling like a victim and feeling done over and feeling blocked, you can do something about that. And that simply just takes a bit of movement. And for me, that would be doing something fairly straightforward. It can be just taking a pencil and pen out, and just scribbling something crap onto a piece of paper. It's doing something rubbish. Create some rubbish for a bit. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Again, your ego is saying it needs to look good, right? So forget that and just create anything that you want to create. Feel your way back into things, okay? Because right now you're feeling like you're up against a wall. That again is your ego saying, this is it. There's no more development here. There's nothing else you can do. There are no more steps you can take. Break down that wall by taking a simple step, a simple foray into just playing. Be playful. Anything that gets you to move physically, gets your hand to scribble down notes, start writing anything. Write gobbledygook. Take some really crap pictures around town. Go for a walk and start taking notes about what you see. Just be a bit of a crazy scientist of the world. And just sort of write down everything you can think of. Do a brain dump. Write down words. Journal for a bit. Just get things moving. Get the juices flowing, even if it's terrible, because you're at risk when you have a creative slump. What's happening with you is that you're at risk of self-criticism, and you're worried about what your ego is going to say about what you do. So this is why you feel blocked, is because you have this kind of critical voice sort of barking at you and saying, no, you can't do anything because it has to be good, right? It has to be perfect. And you need to ignore that and allow yourself to be imperfect. Allow yourself to make mistakes and do something that most would consider terrible, and relax into that flow, that movement. So rather than, just to sort of recap, if you feel like you're in a slump And we were talking about the particular example, which is often the cause of a slump, and of course there are other aspects to it as well, but a lot of the time it's feeling inadequate and feeling like everyone else is sort of getting ahead and everyone else is a lot better than you. You need to realize that is your ego at play, that is saying you need to be perfect, and you are perfect and there's nothing else you can do about it. And you need to say, I'm going to allow myself to make mistakes, to not be perfect, and you need to be taking action. You need to be assertive rather than sitting down and being static and feeling sorry for yourself. Turn that round and do something. So it could be exercise. Again, these are all like kind of base level things that get you to the basic sort of sense of energy. But you can also do things like use the time to gather some knowledge. This is all to do with increasing your value, which will in turn create a better product. So it's about either learning or just taking the next step, taking some kind of assertive action, right? You could create an action plan, you could write a long list, you could brainstorm as well. Brainstorming is a really fantastic way of getting lots and lots of ideas down on paper around a very narrow question or topic. And that process is great for getting the creative juices going again, because you are kind of forced through a narrow pipe effectively by asking yourself one question. So it could be like, what are 100 different uses for a paperclip, as an example, but it could be whatever question that you want to ask, or it could be just a list of ideas for the next painting that you want to do. So rather than trying to be perfect with that first painting, just spend a bit of time coming up with a range of ideas, and don't worry about some of them being terrible, because this is all part of that process. You have to factor in being crap and pushing out as much crap as you can, really, because that's what's going to lead to the goal. The more crap you create, the more fodder, the more material you have to play with to then be able to extract the real gems. And the thing about creativity is that, especially what I've found, it's very unconscious a process. You can't just will yourself into being creative. You become creative when you do other things, and that other thing is going for a walk, doing exercise, writing lists, writing a journal, getting moving in some way, right? So it's ignoring the ego. It's saying, okay, I don't care. I'm not going to allow myself to be static. I'm not going to allow myself to just sit still and feel sorry for myself. I'm going to do something, right? Is this making sense? I know that I tend to kind of babble and jump around different points, and sometimes it can get a little bit cloudy, but I hope I'm getting the idea across, and you've probably seen me write about this a number of times, but taking any kind of action is better than movement. And the thing that we have trouble with when it comes to action, and we hear this so many times in like self-help books and stuff, is to take action, take action, take action. This is what separates the successful, in quotes, from the less successful, is that people who are successful tend to take action. But this is very true. The trouble is that when it comes to taking action, we can get blocked. Okay, and this is the creative slump that you're talking about in this question, is that sense of feeling blocked. And I think the main issue with that, the main issue that we have with not wanting to take action, is because we fear that we're going to make a mistake. We fear something will go wrong. We fear that someone's going to reject us, or that we're going to reject ourselves more than anything else. I think this is really an issue of ourselves rejecting ourselves. So we have to allow ourselves mentally, and just through a commitment that you make before you start, just say to yourself, I am going to allow myself to create absolute trash, total rubbish, really ugly stuff. And who cares? That stuff doesn't need to be shown to the world, but it's vital, actually. You need to see that as an important first step to the creative process, is making bad stuff. Because once you've pushed through that, then you start to loosen up a little bit. You have allowed yourself to make mistakes. Those mistakes will reveal to you ideas that you can then, these ideas create a mesh almost of little creative nodes that bash together and create. It's sort of like how your brain works. If you put down lots and lots of ideas, you start to see a list in front of you of ideas that can then come together and clash and bounce off each other and then create something really interesting. So this whole thing of doing anything, even if it's terrible, is is vital, because that's what's going to lead to the real creative breakthroughs. So if you're in a slump, get your basic needs met. So eat something, make sure that you have apologized for not calling your mum, make sure that you have paid that bill that's been hanging over you. Those little things can sometimes interfere with the creative process. If you have something hanging over you that you know you need to be courageous about, just do the thing. I mean, that brings me to the other side of this, which is the courage aspect. A lot of the time when we feel low energy, when we don't feel our spirit talking to us, when we feel soulless, it's usually because we haven't been taking enough courage in our life. And obviously, doing that first step, which I just talked about, of creating whatever comes to mind and just doing something, that takes courage in itself. So that is an aspect of it. But there may be other aspects of your life that you're not addressing, that you're sort of avoiding because it hurts. It's a prickly feeling in your chest, and you just want to not deal with it. But those are the things that are going to unblock the passageways to more of a productive, higher energy, creative flow. So you've got to think about, what are those things? Often it's just one thing, because the smaller stuff doesn't tend to have that much of a power over us. Maybe it does for some, but there's usually that one thing that you need to address. And so you can also do that. You can figure out what that is through brainstorming. So you might want to write a list of all the things that you should really be taking some courageous action with. What are those things that you are ignoring that you know you need to fix? Think about what those are. Even just the process of writing them down may shift something in you, and you might find that the slump goes away. So there are many solutions to this, and at its core, as I said, your ego, that thing that wants to protect your image and make you look perfect and good and not show the world that you have any flaws, is the thing to not fuel anymore. You can't give your ego the attention that it craves. You need to forget that, and the way you do that is by just telling yourself it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to be terrible, and use that frustration as well to assertively improve your value. So put together an action plan. If you feel that you're inadequate, then what are you going to do to improve that? Rather than sitting there feeling sorry for yourself, get up, write down a list of what you're going to do. What steps are you going to take to sort this out, to turn things around, okay? How can you get to the level of that person that you're jealous of quickly? What are you going to do every day? What's your 30-day challenge going to be over the next 30 days that will rapidly accelerate yourself to higher levels of value, of higher levels of quality in what you do? And get excited about that. Use that sense of having an action plan, of doing something, of getting yourself out of the slump with your own 2 feet as fuel, as energy to break through that wall that you've created. And hopefully that will help. One of those methods. Take action, get your basic needs met, tend to those things that you've kind of been avoiding, that you need to take a little bit of courageous action on. And in general, be courageous. I've found that whenever I've done something that has given me heart palpitations to an extent, all those things that make you nervous a little bit and make you a little bit fearful, those things that take courage, but you know that they're going to be good for you. You know, even though it kind of stings to think about it, you know that it's going to change your life. Those are the things that always accelerate things and always allow the creative juices to come back again. It's taking that action, right? Doing those things that feel a little bit odd, feel a little bit awkward, feel a little bit like a push, but those are the things that are going to not only make you feel better once you've finished it, but actually allow you to take much bigger steps to leapfrog over other people. So an example of that would be, rather than if you have a product to sell, or you have you're looking for new clients, and you feel like you're in a bit of a productive slump, it's because you're probably scared of rejection, of what people will say. And your answer to that might be, because you don't want to go full force with that, your solution is to send out maybe an email to 1,000 people saying, I'm looking for work. Or it might be to tweet something on Twitter. That's kind of like low level, you could be taking a little bit more courage than that. Really what you want to be doing is calling up or emailing individuals who you really want to work with and just blasting through that. So putting together a list of like 20 people, 20 companies that you would love to work with and saying, I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to use my energy here. I'm going to take some courage and I'm going to contact them individually and say, this is where I'm at. I would love it if we could have an opportunity to talk about my work and how it can benefit you, and I've noticed that you do this, and my service that I provide is really going to help you with that. It's taking that courageous action, and suddenly, once you've done it, once you've made that step, you feel the juices coming back, you feel your excitement about yourself coming back, you feel the self-confidence grow again, and you've made a leap. You're not just attracting the minnows, the small clients. You're attracting the bigger names again. So with that, I'm going to leave you there. I hope that made some sense. Please do email me or comment about anything that came up during this that you might have questions about or that you wanted to give me feedback on. Please do. What I wanted to mention next is, obviously, subscribe to this, favorite it, whatever you can do to stay hooked up to this show. If you enjoyed it, please do share it with your friends. Make sure that you're following me on Instagram at Red Lemon Club. Also, make sure that you are signed up to the newsletter on redlemonclub.com. I don't want to bombard you with requests, but I like having as many talented, cool people as possible listening to me so that we can start a conversation together. So do follow me at redlemonclub.com. There will be a sign-up box that you can chuck your email into, and you'll get a free book, and then you will receive a few emails. I will not bombard my list, but it's a useful place to pick up updates on new blog posts as well as podcasts and new cool products that I will be releasing through the shop, which is nearly out, and I'm very excited about it. It's nearly there, so keep posted on that. And finally, if you're interested in chatting with other creative minds from all spheres and all corners of the industry, from designers and coders to blockchain enthusiasts, writers, illustrators, everyone is chatting there at the Red Lemon Club Slack group. So it's a really nifty, well-designed online chat forum. And it's a great place to get accountability for goals and chat about the industry and trends and anything that you have that you want to bring up with other people and gain that extra support. And it's also an interesting place to get out of your bubble of similar types of creatives, and you can also hear from other types of creatives. So go to redlemonclub.com/Slack for that, and you'll have to fill in a quick survey and you'll have access to that. Okay, that's it from me, folks. Much love.